This is a 2001 Honda Civic EX with an engine of 1.7 liters. Okay, in this project we're going to attempt to take the transmission out of this car. It's a VTEC engine, as you can see right here, and the transmission is somewhere down there, and we're going to try to take it out. I've never done this before with this particular car, so you'll be learning as I'm learning as we go along. So good luck to all of us. Underneath there's a stamp on the transmission that tells exactly what kind of transmission I need to buy to replace the one that's currently in there. The first thing I'm going to do is try to clear the deck so I can get this airbox out of the way. Okay, so I guess to remove the airbox, we'll definitely have to move this line. This is a throttle cable, and probably simply just disconnect it here, and then it'll be, and maybe here, and then we'll be able to lift it and get it out of the way of the box. So we're going to remove the air filter cover. So, and then we'll remove the air filter. And as you can see, some mouse left a big surprise under the air filter. It's almost completely blocking the flow from the airbox over here. Okay, so I think I'll remove this part of the air filter as well. And I'm going to disconnect this little line. There's a little sensor inside here that's got a line. Disconnect that. Put it to the side. Looks like we've got one bolt there, another bolt there. Okay, so removing the bottom part of the air filter was a little tricky. I had to take I had to take a bolt out of here, that spot right there. Have to take a bolt out of there, and then I couldn't figure out how to, I tried to pull it up and I couldn't get it up. Then I realized over in the corner, well, right around this throttle area, you see sort of like a rubber grommet, but there is a clamp holding it on the other side. So if we peek down from here, do the best I can with the light. Right there where my finger is, there's a little clamp. It's a screw. It's a Phillips head screw indent. Well, that's it right there. My finger's on. It's this thing right here, and that's a little clamp. We have to unscrew that in order to get the bottom of the air filter off. Okay, so I loosened up the clamp, and now, as you can see, we can lift the lower half of the air filter cover off the throttle body, and there it is. Here's the clamp that I was trying to show you before. And now we'll take the airbox off over there. Keep my little collection of parts that I've taken off. And now to get this airbox off, there's a little clamp here holding a wire bundle, a wire harness. Okay, so you can see this little tab pulls up, and then the whole entire plastic piece comes off this airbox. So that makes 4 bolts altogether that hold this side airbox on. There's this one here, that one, then there's one tucked up there that you can see, and then the 4th one right up there. And that 4th bolt definitely did it, because now, as you can see, I'm able to take the side airbox right out. And that clears the deck to take a look at the transmission down there, and there it most certainly is. And now you can see, actually, Right down here on the transmission there's a stamp. I'm going to turn this upside down, or turn around here so I can read it. Next step is we're going to remove the battery and the battery tray. So we've got a hold down to remove, etc. So let's get that out of the way. And so one of the things you have to do while you're removing the battery is sort of pry up this little plastic piece, get the wire harness, and then as you can see there's another one of those fasteners down there which will have to be removed. Okay, so I've removed the hold down, I removed the battery and the cover. Here's the bottom part of the battery tray, which I'm going to take out, and then I'm going to remove that metal tray, and that will free up a lot more space for the hooking and working with the transmission, which looks like it's only held by 2 bolts, one right there and one right there. Now we're ready to remove the metal tray from the battery holder, and we can just remove that. There were 2 hidden bolts actually down here which go in through the notches on this tray. So altogether there's 4 bolts required to remove this tray. The one here, there, and then the 2 there. Okay, so next I'm going to remove the starter right here, and we have one wire right here which as you may be able to see just pulls up, and then here's the big positive lead going down to the solenoid, and okay, yeah, and then you can see there's a, okay, there it is right there. There's one starter bolt. There's one starter bolt, and I'm assuming there's a matching one on the other side. Starter, so you can see it. There it is, tucked down there. So that should take care of the starter. Got those 2 bolts, and now out is going to come the starter. So here it is, as I said, with just those 2 bolts on either side, 14mm by the way. Okay, now I'm disconnecting all the various wire harnesses and connections that are on the transmission that are going to be in the way if we try to remove it. So we've got one right there with a sensor that goes into the side of the transmission. That needs to be unbolted. Then you've got a little fitting, right? A little fitting right there that goes into that little bracket. That bolt has to be removed because it's holding the wire harness against the transmission. Then there's a wire bundle there, which you can see I've lifted off the little bracket. In order to do that, there's a little tab on the back that you pull down, and it frees that up. Then we have another little connector. Okay, all right. Let's see. We've got another little connector, if I can get that to focus, that goes into this metal bracket right. Then there is another wire bundle down here. You can lift this up. You can lift that one off. It goes down there. And this lifts up. This comes off that bracket. And over here, I've unbolted this piece. So the sensor is held in by that bolt. So I've got that out. Looks like there's an O-ring there too, which I suppose I should try to replace on the new transmission. So next I'll undo this little bolt right here so I can get that wire harness out of the way. I just took this bracket. This is the this is the bracket that was there, so I just took that bracket off that flange, and that freed up the wire harness. And then I took this bundle right here and just split it open, which you do by pushing down hard on this tab right there, and then use a little screwdriver to get it started. And there you see it's that's what the inside looks like. It's pretty much a no-brainer how to get this bundle back together. It's just a little bit hard to see, but this bundle, this wire connector right here, curls around. Well, you know, here's this the dipstick for the transmission. So let me take that out. But now you can see it, and you can see how the wire harness curls around where that sensor went into the transmission. So it comes down and ends right here. Okay, so I'm removing some of the other parts of the harness, but it's worth studying how this harness runs. So you can see, it comes from in the back, runs under this this rubber hose. Let's get this out of the way. So we can see that the harness runs around the back, runs under that hose, and then and that runs over this bracket, which we can disconnect. But now we also have to disconnect this little brace and this sensor. I don't know if this is hot water temperature or what, but we can disconnect that sensor. Oh, okay. So I got this fitting out, which goes into that bracket. I've got this part of the harness off. Okay, so now you can see that we got this whole thing moving here. And then there's another little connector right here. And I'm not sure what else we've got down there. Oh yeah, see, now there's another connector there. Oh, and that runs over to these two solenoids in the front. So here we are. I've got the last of the wire connectors off the transmission as far as I can see. And you've got these two solenoids. You've got these two solenoids, this one. That connector came off the top, black to black. The second one came off down here, brown to brown. Then there was another little fitting that was holding them against with this little bracket. And then there's another wire connector down here, which looks like that you can disconnect. And in addition, there was a sensor, a wire connector over here. I don't know what this is, but let's see if you can get it with my camera. Right there in the corner. So it all looks like this, and once that's connected, this whole bundle can come right up. So now we can get this whole bundle. Here it is, all up here. And I guess I would think it's sort of up out of the way now. And I can see another connector down there next to that cylinder. So right in the center of the screen, there's another connector there. We'll see if there's anything else. And now I'm disconnecting the ground wire from the corner of the transmission here. Just get that out of the way, I guess. Then take those two hoses off and get them out of the way. Okay, as you can see, I've got the two coolant lines disconnected. I marked one with a paint mark just because I want to remember that this one was on the left, so I don't make any mistakes when I just reconnect this. So I made a little mark on the metal line and on the hose. Meanwhile, you can also see I stoppered them. Just nothing leaked out of either hose, but just to keep them clean, make sure nothing gets in there, I used rubber stoppers. Okay, and next we're going to remove the front wheels on each side. Now, as you can see, for the next step, what I did is I had to remove the wheel cover. In order to remove the wheel cover, you have to take the lug nuts off. But I've reinstalled the lug nuts on the wheel so that I can lower the car back to the ground and then be able to stabilize the wheel while I try to take the this hub nut off the end of the drive shaft. So unless you've got a super amazing air tool, it's probably not going to happen with the car up like this. So I'm going to put it back down on the ground and then use a cheater pipe and see if I can get that lug nut off each side of each drive shaft. And I'm just going to stand on this and see if we can get this to turn. Oh, that worked. And that's really all you need is to get it started. Then, and then it just pretty much spins right off. Okay, so I've got both of the axle nuts off. Now we've got to jack the car back up again, take the wheels off. So I'm going to wash down the entire braking area just to prevent brake dust from getting in the air. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the ABS sensor from the steering knuckle. In fact, I'm going to remove the whole entire steering knuckle because I've noticed that this ball joint is pretty punky. So if I'm going to do this job, I might as well get this straightened out right now. See if I can keep that in focus. But you can see the boot is kind of really punky. It's not split wide open, but it's ready to go. So in any case, I'm going to remove that ABS and then take the steering knuckle off. Then we can pull the drive shaft out. Okay, and the ABS sensor is almost out, as you can see. Just wiggling it out gently. And there it is, it's free. And we'll get that up and out of the way. And next I'm going to remove the two caliper bolts and swing the caliper up out of the way. That's a 17mm socket that you need back there. And you might need to use a cheater pipe, which I think is what I'm going to do. So I got the two bolts off the bracket that holds the brakes, and now I'm going to pry that off and then put it up out of the way. So there it goes. Okay, and that takes care of that. And as I said, I'm just going to get a line. There's a big thick welding wire I'm going to use to suspend this thing up out of the way. Alright, and next I'll take off the rotor, which is being held in by that one screw Hopefully that will come out. Oh, that doesn't want to come out. So I'm going to use an impact tool. You can buy these at Sears. And what I'm going to do is twist this in the direction that I want the screw to go. And then hit this with a hammer. And that did it. Amazing. And that one's going too. Awesome. Okay, now the rotor still doesn't want to budge. So we can use these little screw holes right here to put in bolts to pop this thing off. So I'm going to first start by spraying this, lubricate this with WD-40, give us a fighting chance. Okay, so I'm back, and you can see I'm inserting these two bolts in those holes. Let me zoom in a little bit. Get some light on there. These, I think these are M8 bolts. These are 8.8, they're hardened bolts I just happen to have in my garage here. But I think it's these are M8s. And I think you can see it's working like a charm. The rotor's coming right off. And just for the wrench turners out there, I buy metric assortment of bolts from Metric Screw and Tool in Wakefield, Massachusetts, and it's really got really hard. I think these are all M8.8, which isn't the hardest, but it's I think next to the hardest level of bolts. And it's just so convenient to have these available when you need them. So we've got the wheel off, we've got the rotor off, the brakes and rotor off, and now we're going to try to separate the control arm. So we have to look back at the ball joint, which I showed you before, and you can see the boot is really kind of punky. Oh, there, I can really zoom in on it now. All right, so here's the bottom of the ball joint at the end of the control arm, and you can see there's a pin with this castellated nut. So we're going to have to remove this pin, undo the nut, and then somehow use some kind of puller to get these things separated. I hope this doesn't get too ugly. Since I'm going to replace the ball joint, I probably could just beat it up with a fork. That did it. And that's the tool that did it right there, pickle fork. And you can see I've got grease all over the pickle fork, so I did a pretty good job cutting through the poop. But since the ball joint's getting replaced, I guess we don't care. Okay, so now we're going to take the two bolts that hold the strut onto the steering knuckle.
I have to get the impact, I would think.
So that's seized inside the...
I think so.
I think it looked like it just started to move.
Yeah, it's moving. Okay.
Okay, so we got the two bolts out right here, and we're pushing the axle through the spline to get it started. All right, and now we can take the entire entire steering knuckle off. Oh, well, we took it off, I guess. So here it is. Here's the steering knuckle, and here is the drive shaft, which we are going to have to remove. So here we are looking up at the inner end of the drive axle, and we're going to see if we can pry that off. I was successful at getting the drive shaft out. I just pried the inner joint out with screwdriver. It came right out, and just slid it out through the frame. So there it is. Lots of liquid comes out because I just got soaked in that stuff. Thing I just noticed is that this bushing in the control arm is I guess totally gone. So you can sort of see it right here. And so there's actually like no connection between the bushing and this the inner part. The inner part and the outer part are not connected. Ready to come out. Drive shaft number 2. Okay, so that was, and out it comes. So there we go. The next thing I'm going to do, now that I've got this steering knuckle off, I'm going to remove the control arm, because this bushing, God, I can't. Okay, because this bushing right here is really pretty punky. So I'm going to take the control arm, which means you have to take this one bolt out here from underneath. You can see there's the nut down there, and then there's a bolt that runs from across here. Okay, there's the head of the bolt over there, and with those two bolts out and removing the stabilizer link, this little nut right there, I should be able to pull that control arm right out. And there we go, and it works. Quick and painless. And out comes the stabilizer, so how do you like that? The toughest bolt to get out of the control arm, that's the one sort of in the back there. And what I did to get it out, and as you can see it's mostly out, is I used a 19mm socket with a flex head. So, if I can show you this. So I've got this with this flex head, and you can just get it from underneath the car. And that's it. And now we should be able to get the entire control arm out. Okay, so that's that. And now supposedly the control arm should come out, and guess what? There it is. And so here's the control arm. As you can see, the bushing is really in bad shape. And look at that. I guess that bushing's in bad shape. I was able to take it out by hand. So this is the driver's side control arm. And this is in just as bad a shape as the other one. It's just about ready to pop out, maybe being held in by a tiny little bit. Under the fender wells and in front of the transmission. And we're also going to remove the splash shields on the other side as well. And these are just held in by little fasteners, so, and some Phillips head screws. So I'm going to take these out and then we'll go on to the next step. Now I have the splash shield off on the driver's side. And we've got the splash shield off on the transmission side, and so now you can see a lot more details. You can see the two, well, actually you can see 4 solenoids there on the front of the transmission, and the electrical. Here's the cable that runs up from the bottom of the transmission up around that sensor that I showed you before. So that's that. And now we're going to take the exhaust. First we're going to take off the exhaust cover here, and then we're going to take the exhaust from here all the way back to the catalytic converter and just get it out of the way. So we're going to start by removing these 2 bolts and get this cover off. Okay, and so here comes the exhaust cover off, and there's the exhaust manifold. Nice and rusty, but I guess okay. And this is going to be a horror show. I'm sure these bolts are going to break. There are 2 bolts that look like this. So one here and one on the other side. So they're pretty rusty on the other side, so I'm assuming they're going to break, which should be fine since they're a bolt and there's a frozen nut on the other side, so I can just replace it. And then we're going to take off the exhaust down, down past the catalytic converter, down, right down there. And that'll free up this whole section and clear the transmission. Then we can take the subframe down. Okay, and also the other thing we need to do before we take those bolts out is we need to disconnect the oxygen sensor. So that gets disconnected right here. There's a little tab you push in on. I've already loosened it. We're going to pull the oxygen sensor out. Also, you need to free it up from 2 clamps. You can see there's one clamp right here. Okay, and then there's another clamp. Well, you can't. Let's see if you can see it from here. Yeah, and there's the other clamp down there, and you can see I've already freed the line from that. So that way, when we undo the exhaust system and it drops down, it won't break the oxygen sensor wire. Okay. Somehow, amazingly, both of the bolts came out with an air tool. It's kind of shocking. So now the downpipe is, the exhaust pipe down there is free from the exhaust manifold, as you can see. So now I just have to get off the other side of the exhaust and that will be cleared. Okay, so the next thing on the exhaust is we have to remove these 3 nuts and bolts from the back of the catalytic converter. That will clear the pipe of the entire transmission and engine. We also have another oxygen sensor running over here. So we'll have to disconnect the oxygen sensor cable from this little clamp and then disconnect it from up around the firewall. It's just up around the corner. So you need to free it up here. And as you can see, and there's the connector which we just have to disconnect. and that way this whole thing can drop down and not be a problem to these wires. So I should just be able to push this tab in and remove it, so I'll do that. Okay, so as you can see, I successfully took out the exhaust portion, so that's cleared out of the way. Just be careful when you do it that you don't bump the oxygen sensors, because they're in opposite orientations. So you got to be careful taking those out, because that'll cost you some money. I've got a plastic bottle holding this pipe so that it doesn't roll over and bong into that one up there. So anyways, that's the exhaust part. And from down here you can see, you know, was where the end of the catalytic converter was, and so it's free all the way up along the whole bottom surface of the car here. And next we're going to remove the shift cable, and first thing you have to do is remove these 2 bolts to get off the shift cable cover, and then a couple bolts to get off the shift cable itself. So we're going to do that right now. I've removed the shift cable cover, and I almost forgot, we need to go in the car and put the gear in neutral before we go any further. So we'll go in here and we'll get the car shifted. Okay, so next we've put the car in neutral. I had to use the shift lock override, put a screwdriver in here and push down to get it in neutral. I'm not sure why it's locked out. If I knew more mechanics, I probably would. But in any case, we've got the shifter in neutral. Okay, so as you can see, the transaxle cable cover is off, and now we need to remove these 2 holder bolts. They're called the transaxle holder bolts. So we'll remove those next. Okay, so you can see I've taken off the 2 cable holder bolts right up here, and next I'm going to take off this plate so that I can have access to the bottom of the base of the cable, so we can unhook the cable. This bracket here, I don't know if that bracket has to be disattached or not. I'll find out as I'm doing this, but I'm sure that this plate here has to come off. So I will take these off, get access to the bottom of the cable. Okay, so here's the plate. Okay, here's the plate I just removed, the one we were just looking at with those 2 bolts. And as I correctly guess, this allows you to see the base of the shifting cable. And the cable comes in, well, the cable comes in right at the top, and then you can see a bolt here. This must be the control lever, and you can see a bolt, and there's a little metal tab that's keeping the bolt from being able to loosen itself up. So I think what you have to do is bend this tab away, then loosen this bolt, and you'll theoretically able to slide the control lever off, I guess. So that's my next move. Also, I can see that this bracket, since this is part of the bolted to the oil pan, and this is bolted to the transmission, this bracket's clearly going to have to come off before the transmission can separate from the engine. So I'm going to take that bracket off right now as well, just to get it out of the way. And I guess correctly, I bent the metal tab straight out, removed the bolt, and as you'll be able to see, the control arm pulls right off the shift lever there. So that's it. So now we have the, you can take this, and now we have the whole shift cable free. So there's the lever, the cable holder, and the rest of the cable going up. So we can now get this, just take this and get it way out of the way. So that's pretty cool. So I suppose I could just leave the bolt there for now. Okay, meanwhile I need to take this bracket off. As you can see, I just about have this bracket off. So this is a 14 millimeter, used to a 13 right here. And so just finished taking the bolts out. Away we go. It gives us a peek into the flywheel there. And I also noticed that there's a plate right over here, which also connects basically from the oil pan over to the transmission. So that's going to have to go sooner or later, so sooner I guess is better. So I've loosened the bolts, and I'm just going to take this bracket off too. So there it is, whatever it is, I've got it. Plate is gone. That's where it goes. Bottom bolt, top bolt. Okay, the next step is we're going to drain the transmission fluid out of the transmission, and you can see here we are on the passenger side looking straight ahead. You can see where the transmission drain plug is. So we just have to unscrew that and drain out the fluid. And you'll notice that the transmission plug has a little recess that fits a 3/8 extension perfectly. So you can just put the extension in and then unscrew it. Step is we're going to take the torque converter plate off the back to expose the flywheel and torque converter. This is where, of course, we took off one of the brackets and the other bracket was over there. And now the torque converter plate is like right here, so all we have left really is this one bolt, which I've already loosened. So as you can see, once we get that bolt off, then we'll have access to the torque converter and then remove the torque converter bolts. Okay, so here's the torque converter plate, and now as you can see, we can see the bolts that hold the torque converter to the flywheel, and we'll have to take those out one at a time and rotate the crankshaft so we can have access to the ones that are up above. So that's what we're going to do next, is remove the torque converter bolts. Here we are going to start removing the torque converter bolts. They go from the torque converter to the drive plate, it's called. I said the flywheel. I don't know if that's the same thing, but that's the idea. And so they are 10 millimeters. I've got a nice little flex wrench. Okay, and there they go. So they're not torqued on too badly. Oh boy, I gotta keep some way to keep this flywheel from turning around. Okay, so that's what they look like, and I'm not sure how many I've got. I'd guess, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to guess there are probably 8, but I might be wrong. Here's another look at it. Here's the torque converter bolts, and right over here I put a wrench on the crankshaft, and I realized that actually if I put one hand on this wrench and then the other hand over there on that wrench, then I can keep the flywheel from spinning around. Should have thought of that before. And so I just removed the last of the torque converter bolts. Okay, here they are. Before this changes position, to mark the the torque converter with the drive plate. Okay, so now we're going to try to support the motor, and we're going to attach the this hook to a bolt that's inserted through this. There's a, I don't know if you can see that, I guess you can. There's a threaded hole, and I just happen to have a bolt that I could thread in there, but we're going to thread a bolt into this, and then we're going to support, put the hook around that so that this side of the engine is supported when we remove the transmission mount and any of the mounts, so stuff doesn't drop down until we want it to. In fact, basically after this gets supported, we're supposed to remove all the mounts except for this mount here, right there, that you can see those two big bolts. But we're not going, that's the front mount, which there's one end of it, and there's the two bolts there on the other side. We're going to leave that mount intact, so we'll just put this bolt in a ways. So here's my setup. As you can see, I've got the bolt I threaded in, then this little hook being supported up here. Now, if you don't have a tool like this and you can't rent one, you can simply just put a jack under the motor and hold it up from underneath. This is just elegant because the whole underside of the car is free while you're working down there. And now I've got it tightened, so this is just supporting the weight of the engine. I need to remove the mount over here, this transaxle mount. Then there's another mount straight down in front of me, down there, right up there. And so I think that's the rear mount. So I think those three mounts will do it. And here's another look at that mount. And you can see the stud came out rather than the nut, but that's okay with me. Okay, so that mount is free. And as you can see, it's not holding the transmission anymore. And now next, for no particular reason, I just loosened and I'm removing the three bolts from the rear bracket. There's 1, 2, 3. And when I did that, the entire transmission started to drop down a little bit, so you can see it's a little bit wiggly now. And I believe the only last mount to remove is the front mount right there. I think for the final mount here, I'm going to remove this bolt here and the bolt up above it. So here we go, removing it. Finish taking it off with this flex wrench because there's not that much space there. Okay, so here's the lower bolt, and I'll just grab the upper one, and then I think the transmission should be ready to drop down. And we're removing the second bolt from up above, and that should free up the transmission, as I said. The next big step is we're going to remove the subframe. That is this big piece of the frame that runs across here, right up to the front, then right across the front, and right over to there, and then back across. So it's basically this whole big square box and that subframe has to be removed to get the transmission out. Obviously, as you can see, transmission's not going to get by unless that thing's gone. So we have to remove the subframe. That consists of 4 major bolts. There's one there, one on that corner, then the one back there, and then the one there. I think it will also require removing this this bolt there, because there's a bracket that's attaching the subframe there, and then there's one on the other side exactly the same. So I think this is going to require removing those 6 bolts. As you need to mark, you can see I've got some paint marks here. It says to mark the subframe against the chassis, because I guess when the subframe goes back in, it isn't necessarily perfectly lined up with where it is now. It could be off by a little bit. So you try to make paint marks so that you can line the subframe back up the way it belongs. I'm going to start removing the subframe by removing the two smaller bolts that are on those brackets on either side of the subframe here. And then I'm going to support both sides of the subframe with jacks and then remove the other bolts. So that's one of them, and I'll grab the one on the other side. So as you can see, I've got a jack on either side of the subframe. Got one on this side as well. And now I'm going to take off those 4 major bolts and supposedly lower the subframe out of the way. So I've got the jacks, this one and that one, both situated about midway along the subframe. There's only 4 bolts to go, and then this whole thing should drop out. That's a big boy. And it doesn't look like the frame dropped down at all yet. That's another big boy. Okay, and here you can see the subframe is just starting to move. I can pull on it and you can see that it's got some free play. To the third big bolt. And I think I better put the camera down. We'll go to the third big bolt right there. Okay, so here's the third bolt that I just took out, and that's pretty much the same. And then the last bolt is right over there, holding the subframe in. So here's the 4th and final bolt. And after this bolt, the subframe should be free. And that's it. And all 4 bolts are huge, and they're all 4 identical. Now I'm going to release the jacks slowly, and we should see the subframe drop down. And there it is. Okay, and there it goes. And I'll lower the other side. Okay, and we'll release this side. And down comes the subframe. Wow. We'll drop this down the rest of the way. And there it is, and we'll pull it. I'll pull it out from under the car. Here's the subframe. I just dragged it from under the car. It's so cool. And I guess if you were going to do any work on replacing motor mounts, what a good time this would be to do it. I just discovered that the front mount, just looking this over, this thing is, well, you can probably see it's completely junk. It's all cracked, and I mean, well, it's just essentially broken actually, so it's doing nothing at all. And here's the rear mount, which actually looks like it's in pretty decent shape. So this is it. And next step is to lower the engine transmission unit and take the transmission out. You can see here the little stabilizer links that I think I'll probably just replace. And look at a look under the transmission. You can see there's nothing between the transmission and the floor except empty space. I'm going to start removing the transaxle bolts that are holding the transmission to the engine, and the first one is this one right down here. It's right near the end of the valve cover here, off past the exhaust manifold. So we're going to remove this one first, then I'm going to remove another one up top, then I'm going to lower the entire transmission so that this part of the transmission can clear the chassis. Okay, so as you can see, there goes bolt 1, pulling out with the magnetic tool. So the second tranny bolt we're going to take is right down there. That's the bolt just above the opening where the starter that was left by removing the starter. Okay, so here we can see the opening from the hole that was left behind from the starter, and the second bolt that we're going to take off is the one just below where my finger is, above the starter hole. That's going to be the second transmission bolt that we're going to take out. Then we'll support the transmission with a jack and take out the rest of them. Here it is. So here's the next transmission bolt I'm going to remove right there, and then you can see down there is another one. At some point I'm going to lower the system and lower the whole transmission so that it'll be able to clear the chassis, which right now it obviously can't do. But it's still a little bit easier for me to get to those, at least that this top one, maybe the bottom one, before I lower the transmission. Okay, so here I am removing this bolt number 3, just below the coolant line there. Power tools make everything so easy. Okay, so there it is. I'll just take that out. So far, all 3 of the transmission bolts, 1, 2, and 3, are all the same size. So far. Okay, now we'll remove bolt 4, which is the front of radiator side of the transmission, a little bit lower down. What I decided to do now is I'm going to lower the engine transmission assembly here before I even get that 4th bolt down there. I think it'll be easier to get from underneath the car. So I'm just going to drop this down and we'll see what happens. And you can see oh, there it is. The transmission's now free of that mount on the side. Awesome. I'm going to lower it a little bit more but I think I'm going to be in business. Whoa, that was pretty exciting. It's about as far as I dare to lower it because I'm pretty much used up all the threads here. And we'll take a look now again how it looks over here. And I think you can see that the transmission should clear this chassis. Okay, there's the bolt we removed. That's number 3. And so here's number 4, and it is more accessible, I think, down below. So I'm going to remove that right now. Number 4, still in an awkward position, so I'm using a really big long extension out to my air gun. So just thought I'd show you that for your convenience. Okay, and there it is. Makes it pretty easy. So underneath the car, I think that here's a transmission bolt. This would be bolt number 5. And I'm thinking that this is the last one. So after I get this out, I should be able to wiggle the transmission free. And I've got it supported by a couple jacks here, awkwardly. I don't own a transmission jack, or I would use one. But I think this is it. Just on the chance that this transmission is actually going to come out, I'm going to leave this camera on this side and you can watch the activities. Well, I guess it's separated. Holy cow. That was kind of exciting. And we want to make sure that the torque converter, which is right here, doesn't fall out and get wrecked or spill all over the floor. So somehow I should try to secure this so it can't go anywhere. So I guess 5 bolts was the magic number because it's not connected anymore. So that's pretty amazing and exciting. Okay, I can just be really careful. This is pretty awkward. I guess. I'm trying to just get a feel for the balance. Whoa! Wow! I'm just trying to get a feel for the balance of this thing. So here we are. Here's the transmission from the torque converter side. And, you know, apparently I made a pretty good guess for the position of the jacks because, as you can see, I didn't crash it and it came down. So if you have space down here because you've got a support from above the motor, then you can do this. And I'm just going to focus on the position of the jack. This one jack here, and then the other jack is at 90 degrees to this on the other side. Yeah, so this jack is right here. And those two jacks together seem to really balance it pretty well. And the motor's tilted down quite a bit right at the end of my threads there, but that's the setup. Okay, and finally here it is outside the car. Here it is with the torque converter removed. That's it. And thank you for watching. And just having two jacks like that gave me the ability to, slowly bring that down without having it tip over. See, and that's the advantage of having that overhead engine support, because you could have all this space below to negotiate with the transmission. Okay, so I think I better get that jack under there pretty soon.